Okay, for today's reaction, we're doing something a bit different. I'm gonna go through an article, a random article I found about a topic that's important to me. I've received this from my wife recently, not the article specifically. She sent me something else and blah. Anyway, but she told me, "Hey, did you hear that the UK is regulating homeschooling now much more than they were before?" So they decided to do that. So let's set the stage real quick. So apparently, with the magic virus that wasn't there, all of a sudden, lots of British citizens decided that they wanted to take control of their children's education. Again, for once. And all of a sudden they figured out, being parents is not that bad. We kind of want to do that more. So apparently it became a little bit more popular. And people suddenly want to do it more. Okay. Sounds good. So they started and they carried on and now they're not stopping. So obviously the government needs to absolutely step in, because one fundamental necessary element for the paradise that the government is generating for us and for the future is that everybody must be educated exactly in the same way. That is the rule. Bear in mind the frame in which this is portrayed is that every child has a right to an education. An education, okay? Beautiful stealing of words in this very Orwellian fashion. By education, what they mean, of course, is identical indoctrination to everybody else, which is completely nonsensical. In fact, the moment in which you graduate to adult, then you go in whatever direction you want, which effectively means the first 20 years of your life are a complete waste of time, which is nonsensical. Now, there's a million arguments like, you need to have general knowledge, you need to be within your zeitgeist, you meet lots of people, etc., etc., etc. Now, A, that's a complete lie. B, just using my own anecdote as an example, I've traveled so much that none of the people that I knew when I was young are in any way, shape or form still related to my life. It doesn't make any sense at all. Right? So the connections thing is nonsensical. The children that come out of schools are way less well behaved than children that come out of homeschooling, because the parents will bloody murder the children if they that's of course figurative language before anybody gets too scared. If your children irritate you all daily, you're not going to stand for it, right? So they're generally cooperative and much more pleasant. Now, of course, there are families that do homeschooling in a way that I don't approve of, for example. Not that then takes me to the next step where I wish to regulate it. It's just because there are other people who do regulate it that then these homeschoolers put a bad name on the others. And then it gives justifications to the monsters to step in. Anyway, the UK, generally speaking, for a long time has been quite liberal. I guess I could end the sentence there, but specifically with homeschooling, you could homeschool pretty much as much as you wanted. But in most places, basically, you are not going to be granted access to higher education if you are homeschooled and all sorts of things. So the UK has decided they need to control this, and for the greater good. Yes, because it's a right, we need to impose it. If anybody does not see a contradiction in terms of this, well, because it's not right, and it's not even desirable by now. So far as I understand, literacy globally is collapsing. People can't read, people can't spell. I mean, they can read Discord, but the point is, Instagram. I'm not hip with the kids, am I? But they can't spell. They can't do arithmetic at all. This is just a fact of everybody I'm meeting, young and old. Nobody can do arithmetic, and I'm talking like basic stuff, like adding 3 figures together is gonna make their mind blow. Like my job, one of my jobs. Well, one thing I do in my work is I make games, in this case a board game, and you need to tally up scores at the end, and regularly, whenever I do it, people are absolutely blown away that I can add 2 digits together. 13 plus 12 is 25. Wow, right? And people age 30, 40, 20, pick any age, are blown away by the fact that I can do this absolutely basic accounting, right? Anyway, so that's gone too. Like, basically, it is unequivocally the case that school is absolutely awful in everything. Results, everything. It just doesn't do anything useful. Okay? Fantastic. So, now you can argue that this is my opinion, I'm sure. Point is, all that matters to me is liberty of choice. And let's see what the government here apparently wants to do. HSLDA, whatever it is working with families and advocates to challenge legislation that poses a severe threat to homeschool freedom in England and Wales. The Children's Wellbeing and Schools Bill. Schools Bill, apparently that's what we're going to refer to it as. Introduced in December 2024, calls for the creation of a national registry of homeschooled children. Absolutely, put my kids in another database, why not? They have a national insurance number, they have a health number, they have this number, they have a tax number, they have... Beautiful. In England. It will also give local officials the authority to deny individual families the right to homeschool. The children are mine, government. They're not yours. They're mine. You don't get to make decisions. Ever. For any reason. Legislate it all you want. We will ignore your laws. You will have to put us in jail before we decide to acquiesce to your silly demands. It's not happening. These are our kids. We will do what we want with them. Whether you like it or not. The bill passed the House of Commons, of course it did, and was introduced in the House of Lords March 19. Because that's democracy. Democracy. Demos, people. Kratos, I think. I don't speak Greek. I think it means government. Government by the people. Like hell. Nobody voted for this. Nobody was asked about this. Nobody. A bunch of communist busybodies have decided, oh, the children are falling by the wayside. The parents have this liberty. We need to curtail it. The children need to do what we want. The parents need to do what we want. That's an oligarchy. You can call it, and it's definitely not a republic. You can keep calling it whatever you want. It's all fake. I don't think the UK is a republic anyway. It's a kingdom, but the royals are generally relatively hands off, right? So it's effectively speaking like any crappy European democracy, right? You're not a former shadow of your old selves, UK, which is a shame. Because, as I've said in numerous videos before, you are the best people I've ever seen. Anyway, so we read this. So, the measure reflects the underlying ethos of pro-regulation model legislation released by a US organization in 2024. I have no idea what any of this means, in the sense that I would need to know about this stuff, which I don't. And the underlying ethos is control. There's no more underlying ethos. It's definitely not an ethos, right? It's not. It's got nothing to do with ethics. It's got to do with dictatorship, right? Which is now influencing some American lawmakers. Yeah, it's power-hungry people, man. You don't need to give it a fancy name. The Make Homeschool Safe Act, is this an American thing, suggests a litany of restrictions aimed at home education based on the presumption that parents can't be trusted to raise and teach their own children. Now, for all the fools that agree with this particular premise, I would like you all to be aware of the fact that schools are basically new. Historically, they're a speck. 2 generations. They have had school as mandatory. A mandatory right, of course, if we can accept such an oxymoron, right? The world has existed for a very, very, very long time without any of this. And schools were still a thing. I have no problem with schools, just so we're clear. I have a problem with mandatory stuff. Okay? Parents can't be trusted. That is such a sweeping statement. Unbelievable. In a similar vein, Dame Rachel de Souza, the hell is this? The Children's Commissioner for England, told the media, that's very English, the schools bill lays a foundation for change in many children's lives. many of whom have been neglected or hidden. Oh, it's to protect all of the neglected people. Oh, what about the bazillion people who are not neglecting their children at all? You need to protect the children for their own parents. Oh, gorgeous. Right? Using fringe examples, as per usual. Right? Educate 100 by, educate 1 by hitting 100. That's yeah. I don't think you understand how examples work. Except you understand full well and you lie. As per usual, you're a politician, you obviously lie. That's what you do. That's the only thing you know. For these children, this legislation cannot come quickly enough. Yeah, for these children. Lying bastard. Plus, not even that is true, but yeah, anyway. What the evidence says, Kevin Bowden, attorney, wrote a letter to Parliament in February enumerating many troubling aspects of the schools bill. And yeah, chief among them, the fact that I can't do what I want. Foremost, he declared the bill interferes with the natural rights of parents to raise their children as recognized by international declaration and covenants. Mate, they write the laws, they don't care about your covenants. That's why the American Constitution, for example, is complete paper. It's worthless. That's why places like California can legislate your gun ownership as much as they want, even though it should be protected. That's why you can't use, say, the N-word, even though it clearly should be protected. Earlier in January, Bowden also presented testimony to the British lawmaker in opposition to the bill, along with Aristotle Foundation Research Director, interesting, David Hunt. Why do you cite all this stuff? It doesn't matter. And longtime homeschool researcher Brian Ray. These are all like appeals to authority. Bowden joined his colleagues in arguing that the antipathy toward homeschooling that the schools bill represents is not, where's the commas, is not just misjudged, it threatens to undermine a proven benefit. Yes, a proven benefit. Yeah, because if like evidence matters to politicians, dude. Oh yeah, we have the carbon emissions and they're absolutely terrible. Okay, let's generate a whole industry to build a completely different car industry because that saves the planet, does it? You lying idiots. This is obviously fake. Whatever is proven and is a benefit or a malus doesn't matter at all to them. Because remember, they need to protect. The parents cannot be trusted. Where is it? For these children, this legislation cannot come quickly enough. The evidence shows that home education is not something to be feared, but celebrated. I don't care. It's freedom. Bowden, Hunt, and Ray declared as part of their evidence. The three-cited research by blah, 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 flourishing program, homeschooled the children generally develop into well-adjusted, responsible, and socially engaged young adults. I don't know if you noticed, but governments are in the business of getting humans to go extinct. In the words of Milton Friedman, if the government were in charge of the Sahara Desert, there would be a shortage of sand, and now the government is in charge of people. And guess what there's a shortage of? Right? The fact that they are generally well-adjusted and socially engaged, whatever the heck that means. School doesn't do anything, man, outside of making people all the same and hate their lives. Their exception, of course. Anyway, in subsequent remarks, Bowden added that the school bill stems from a trend in the United Kingdom toward more government oversight. Yes, it's not a trend, it's the standard progression of all government. It's a very sad development, but not a surprising one. Yes, well done. He said, the idea that the idea the state has to make sure kids are safe even from their parents. It's insanity. Has been part of the discourse in Britain for some time now. It's not in Britain, mate, it's everywhere. What the bill does, let's see what it does. So the authority the bill grants government officials over homeschooling is expansive, of course it is. According to one newspaper, local councils would be given the power to terminate homeschooling rights in their home environment is deemed unsuitable or unsafe. Oh yeah, by whom? But the bill does not define those terms. Of course it doesn't. Leaving the language open to interpretation. Of course it does. And potential abuse by official. What do you mean potential? Guaranteed abuse. This is starts from abuse of power. The government does not have power to decide what you do with your life and by extension your children's. The end. This doesn't merit any discussion. It's axiomatic. The measure also calls for issuing every student, including those being homeschooled, a national identity. This allows it. I remember the British people hating having an ID, which is why they still don't, is my understanding. What happened to you, Brits? This allows each student to be tracked via a centralized database. Beautiful. Not just for academic purposes, but across government agencies, including those involved in providing healthcare and other social services. Of course. You're complete property of your government. I have lived through a pseudo-Soviet world in Yugoslavia. This keeps coming back. It's like playing whack-a-mole with communists. What do you need to do? Like, eliminate them all? Like French Revolution style, everybody needs to be beheaded that it shows any level of sympathy toward Che Guevara? What do we need to do to stop this idiotic ideology? I mean, it's stupid prima facie. It's just terrible. Nobody wants to be controlled. Except them. Well, they don't want to be controlled, they want to control. Anyway, some advocates in England, also some, let's be vague. Well, then again, I complain about the be specific, so I suppose I should pick a lane, shouldn't I? Some advocates in England also fear the schools bill could be used to restrict religious liberty. Who cares? Not because religious liberty isn't a thing. I do not need an adjective in front of liberty of any kind. Though the legislation does not address faith-based education, of course, I mean, they're still going to keep their madrasas going. I mean, you need to have people in your country that are going to destroy it fairly openly, right, on religious grounds, etc. It's just silly. The proposed registry for homeschooling families would require parents to submit detailed information about everyone who contributes to the education of their children. Yeah, because it's so great, right? So you need to focus your energy on educating your child, and then what you need to do on top of it is you need to do a ton of administrative crap. Anyway, I just noticed somebody's delivered some stuff, so I'm going to have to go. Including how much time they spend with these individuals. Yeah, administrative work, just like all communism does. Anyway, that's plenty. But yes, England, you're awful. And governments don't do anything for their people. Goodbye.